In this video, we'll look at what I nickname Oasis chords, but this is used in all styles and all genres on electric and acoustic guitar. Particular examples can be found with Neil Young and even Guns N' Roses. And these chords are all based around the big G major chord, because this is where we're going to keep the third and little finger down, use these as an anchor finger, and this is something we've done already with the G major chord and the C add 9. And all we're going to cover is how to do this with another 3 chords and try and explain what these names are actually meaning, because they do have some pretty funky names that can be really hard to remember and very confusing. But the trick is, often the more confusing the name, the more simple the chord change. Open chords like E, A and D, then C and G require you to change your fingers all the time. And when chords have confusing names, often the chord changes become easier. Let me show you what I mean. We went for this G major earlier, and then I said E minor is a very common chord change, and we can play E minor while keeping the third and little finger down. To make this more comfortable, maybe don't have the third and little finger all the way over this side, and perhaps have them more in the middle of the fretboard, like directly where the dot is in the middle of fret 3. Directly here, have them around in the middle. And this is something called an E minor 7, which is why we often nickname these Oasis chords, because this is the first chord in Wonderwall, the next chord in Wonderwall being the G major, and you can see that this uses that same technique as the C add 9. This is called an E minor 7, and all of these often have different numbers at the end of them, which we'll explain later. The G doesn't, because it doesn't actually add an extra letter name. But E minor becomes E minor 7 when we have the third and little finger down. And it's a great variation. Anytime you play this G chord, you can basically play this E minor, and it's always going to sound good, this E minor 7. The next chord we'll look at is the A7 sus4. What a mouthful, but it's literally the E minor just moved 1 string down, but we don't want string 6 to ring out, so we're going to put our thumb on top. The same as what I recommend we do with the C add 9, because what that means is we can strum all 6 strings. Whether we have a clean sound or a super overdrive sound, that thumb on top, not right over, means that for the C add 9 and the A7 sus4, or just think of this as an A chord, an Oasis A chord, or a Neil Young, or even Pink Floyd A chord, because this is used in Wish You Were Here as well, this same technique. This is really powerful if we have a good solid mute. It's quite easy to do and quite easy to change between these chords. The other chord that we can do this same technique with is a D sus4, and we'd essentially just move all this A chord down again, but it's just the first finger that's needed. And this is our standard D major, and if we add on the 4th finger, that's called a D sus4. More about what those numbers and letters mean in the upcoming videos. But for now, what we need to know is that G, C add 9, E minor, A7, sus4 and D sus4 are all this Oasis, Neil Young, Pink Floyd, the strumming Pink Floyd songs anyway, maybe the more acoustic-y ones, all go really well together, and they're all in the key of G major or E minor. That G and E minor, the two on string 6, we'll cover more about that later, but these all just go together really well. And physically, they're very easy to change between, but the third and little finger take the brunt because they can be down for a whole song. In the case of Wonderwall, that's the case. In the case of particularly Oasis songs, Noel Gallagher just took this technique and ran with it, basically. Third and little finger down, and I'm just going to see where these other fingers kind of sound good. And there are other options as well, but these are the main ones. G to C add 9 we've covered, and then it's E minor, which is E minor 7, the A chord, technically an A7 sus4, and then D sus4. And there are other variations of this where like most of the fingers will be down, but sometimes we take one off. Same with E7, sometimes we do this, but it doesn't sound a lot different. And the main thing is we remember where the root note is to remember the name. So on G and the C add 9, no matter what the rest of the chord is or where else you put your fingers, G is the root note on the G chord, C is the root note. On C add 9, same as a C major chord, that note is the same, C, C. E, it's the open E string. A, it's the open A string and we need our thumb on top. D, it's the open D string. The A is fine to ring out practically, even with loads of overdrive. Still sounds rocking. The only way that doesn't sound good is if we have the thickest E string ringing out on like the A chords. And then it just sounds a bit muddy on the low end, that's all. Not terrible, just a bit muddy. So please try these chords on a clean tone first of all, but try them with more overdriven sounds and see if the muting starts to ring together, and try and keep that low end clean. As long as you're getting even with overdrive sounds, so let's try this on the Brown sound setting again. D7 sus4, that's fine. That muddy low end is stopped by the thumb. And when your fingers are basically on string 5, you don't have the thumb on. And for all the others, we basically do. Thumb on top. Or, you know, thereabouts. It's just the E chord and the G. E and the G, no thumb. Everything else, thumb on top is what you're looking at. So the more you go around and your fingers are on the thinner strings, thumb comes around to cover the thicker strings. And that's all you keep it in mind, basically. And there are Oasis and also Neil Young, Bob Dylan, Pink Floyd chords with the third and little finger staying put. But I'll also leave a link to my full beginner electric course, brand new. This is a totally revamped syllabus with some essentials from the acoustic syllabus, but doing some electric guitar stuff and getting the sounds, using chorus, using the amplifier, using pedals, teaching you all these essential skills for electric guitar and setting you up to make real progress on the instrument. I'll leave the link in the description and on the screen now, and I hope to see you over there on the website andyguitar.co.uk.